If you're watching this video, you'd probably agree that both on the internet and in real life, good representations of Cuban dance accompanied by coherent explanations are few and far between. And there's a simple reason for that. However easy it may look from the outside, there's a lot of details and nuance in casino that if present can make for beauty and simplicity. But if absent, can kind of make the dance look like shit. Surely if it's difficult to dance, it's got to be harder to teach. And at some point, if you dance long enough, you're gonna become a teacher. Whether it's just answering questions from newer dancers who look up to you, or you're thinking about starting your own group class. It's one thing to have dances that look great and feel connected, but effectively communicating that information with another person or group of people is an entirely different animal. I have to say, I've been pretty lucky to have a fantastic teacher out of Miami, Carlos Ramirez. Most of the casino that I share in this channel comes directly from him, so using his teachings as a foundation combined with my own experience, I've come up with a methodology that I have to say is pretty effective at taking somebody and teaching them how to dance casino properly, quickly, to the point where people coming into the classes, even if they have experience already, are usually able to get something out of even the level 1 class. So in a recent video, I answered a lot of specific questions about teaching. If you would like to see more content where I go a bit more in depth or anything even in the way of like a teacher training, please leave a comment. But what I thought might be useful is if I gave a broader overview of my approach along with a breakdown of each step. And yes, I will more than once be referencing the upcoming Comprehensive Casino full digital course that I'm currently building on the website, which of course goes into excruciating detail on all these topics. But even just in this video, there's gonna be enough where I lay out a framework that you can take, make your own just like I did. So if you happen to like how the people in the classes dance when you see them on Instagram and Facebook, or you just like the instructional material I put out on the channel, this is how I approach teaching casino. So a good place to start would be, what is casino?
So if I had to answer the question of what is casino, I would say it's the modern way of dancing son cubano. That's what I would say, and then they'll probably just kind of ask me, "What the heck are you talking about?"
Yeah,
I came for some salsa lessons. What are you talking about?
Whether you're just sharing the dance that you love with a group of friends in your corner of the world, or you're holding a proper group class, the questions are coming. So it's good to have some answers in your hip pocket ready to go.
So if you talk to Carlos like maybe 8 years ago, we were doing this interview, then maybe I would just go down the whole line of like the different Cuban rhythms. How there's no such rhythm as salsa.
I like that. Can we get the Carlos from 8 years ago version and then the now?
Yeah. If you were talking to me back then I would say, look, there's no such thing as salsa rhythm. Okay, that's something that's been named outside of Cuba. So the rhythm is son and its variants, right? Modern day son being called timba.
So speaking of the rhythm, let's move on to the next part. The music. Like I say, the goal is always to get to a point where we're feeling the music. And some people are gonna walk in the door already there. Other people are definitely not, but through a mixture of exposure, so just listening to and dancing to the music, and a little bit of a breakdown of what's happening with the different instruments, with practice, they can move along that scale to the side of actually feeling the music. I try to meet people where they're at, but I only wanna go as far into the analytical portion as absolutely necessary, because we're trying to go this way, more towards feeling. And with practice, it's gonna come. In the course, I go all the way for people who wanna understand the numbers, the different instruments, the counts. Maybe if you're a musician and you're curious on a musical level what's happening, that part of the course is gonna leave you wanting for nothing. But we can also flip it. So that the 2 side sounds like it's happening first, followed by the 3 side. That would be something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4. So speaking of the rhythm, for a student, you can tell them to download salsa rhythms and they can kind of poke around on their own and sort of get a feel for what's going on. And over time, as you grow as a teacher or a dancer, it's always good to understand a little bit more about the music. But in terms of a first class, the second that a group of people can feel the pulse of the music, that's good enough to get the bodies moving. And there's a lot in the how, so let's move on to body movement. The goal is to get people dancing, and you're gonna do that by showing them simple turns, which is good because they can do them without feeling overwhelmed, they can feel more confident. The way that those turns are gonna look a lot more natural is if you incorporate body movement and do it as early as possible, like the first class. So as your class grows from beginners to advanced beginners and on to intermediate, they're always going to have that head start of doing body movement from day one. So even when they get to a point where they start learning styling, which we're going to cover later, they've got a solid foundation to put that styling on top of, as opposed to when people have been dancing and they just know a lot of turns and all of a sudden they want to learn styling. And it looks like they're just learning arms and they're moving independent of the rest of their body, and it just doesn't look natural, which is people's biggest complaint about styling. How do I make it look natural? You do it by practicing body movement from the very first class that you took 5 years ago.
She does this a lot. So like, if you're just like, I like how Mercedes dances, and then you're doing this and you're just like, you're gonna not dance how Mercedes dances. You're gonna dance the opposite of how Mercedes dances. See how she's articulating the feet, changing the weight? See all that stuff here that happens? That's not an accident. If I'm dancing like as the lady and I want to like exaggerate a hip, it would be the far away hip where the weight is not. So if I was gonna put the hips into it, the hips are going away from where the weight is.
So naturally, body movement is something that can make people kind of self-conscious or uncomfortable. So I do my best to present it as very natural movements, which they are. So stolen from Guinier Quintero, who you should go take classes with if you're ever in Miami, I liken the coordination to jogging. When it comes to coordinating the upper and lower body, it's kind of useful to think about jogging because it's something your body already does, to the point where if we're just jogging in place, it's a little bit hoppy, but it's not far off from what we'll be doing. If we put more of the weight transfer that we've been doing and take the hop out of it, this is exactly the coordination that I'm looking for. So when I'm stepping with my right, the right knee's bent, the left arm is balancing. The right arm kind of gets out of the way. And when I'm stepping with my left, the right arm is balancing and the left arm goes out of the way. So it's opposite coordination. It's just a natural way of moving your body, and you're just accentuating all the movements that would take place when you're jogging, with another added wrinkle of lateral movement. But a good test for that mobility is to take your arms and put them out to the side and see if you can shift your torso to the right side, back to the middle, to the left side, back to the middle. And what you don't want to happen is have the airplane tip. You want to keep the table nice and level, side to side, side to side, which is something that people don't typically do, is walk sideways. So there's a drill in the course where I have people moving from side to side and gradually move faster and faster and faster so they can kind of feel that sway and how their body naturally balances itself. So they have the movement within them already. It's just a matter of putting it into practice and forgetting about it. All of this movement from the hips up rests on a very grounded foundation that people sometimes struggle with. So I've got a drill in the course where we lean up against a wall and we push like we're pushing a car to give you a feel of how the feet are supposed to feel when they're stepping. So once we've covered how we're gonna move, it's time to get dancing, but first we need to warm up. If we're gonna warm up, we may as well do so in a way that's gonna help us out later with what we're learning. Over the years, I've put together a specific set of steps that I warm up with for every single class because they're used everywhere in casino. And if the students can get them in their muscle memory ahead of time, a lot of the turns and basic steps that we're gonna cover are gonna come together a lot more easily. I've got a whole video on my warm up that you can steal right off of YouTube. I obviously cover it in borderline undiagnosed compulsive disorder territory in the course as well. So when we're stepping forward, we're using it to push back and then back. And when we step back, we're using it to push forward and then forward. And that is going to be used in at least one move in Casino di Licano for both the lead and the follow. So when we practice it, it'll have us ready to do that footwork for partner work later on. I actually have the group clap out where they're stepping. So if you're watching this video, you probably know we step 1, 2, 3, pause over and over again. So I have them clap 3 times, hold the pause, clap 3 times, hold the pause, until they can really hear where their feet are gonna be as if their feet were their own instrument. And then we start going through a 2-step, paso son, little back rock, moving with the back rock, traveling side to side, adding pivots to walk and pivot, then modified version of the forward and back and side step that suit casino. And with all the steps that we're doing, I continually remind them about the body movement that we talked about earlier. So now it's time to actually dance. It's right around this time that I typically begin framing people's ideas about the course they're going to be taking by breaching the topic of expectations, because casino is an intricate dance.
Casino at its core is a dance that should look simple, you know, and effortless. Even if it's not, even if it's, because it isn't. You and I know that to get it to look good and all that stuff, it's not.
But it's very bottom up, and if we take our time and learn things the right way, the rest of the dance is really just smoke and mirrors in many ways. You know, it's all the fundamentals with just extra stuff added.
exactly what I always say. It's like the beginning is probably the hardest part if you want to like pick up good habits.
You can dumb down the steps and teach easy versions, and quite frankly, that's why there's a lot of bad casino out there. I don't do that. I give them the straight dope right away from day one, which is more difficult at first, but I think better off in the long run, and here's why. Even if people are gonna grab onto a simplified version of the dance easier, one day you're gonna spring on them that, hey, guess what? We're dancing it an entirely different way. And not only is all your muscle memory that you have stored up kind of useless, all the partner mechanics of the dance change entirely just based on stepping the hard way or the right way. So in the long run, you're really not doing them any favors. Like the prophet Mark Wahlberg said,
even if it's just like a fucking 2-second clip, you can still get demonetized?
So you think there's a fucking 5-second rule on fucking copyright infringement?
That's what he said. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
from there, I go on to cover basically all of the fundamental single arm turns that you'll commonly find in casino. Always keeping in mind where the follow is relative to the lead when the turns initiate, whether she's on his left hand, his right shoulder, or somewhere in front of him. The reason why will become clear when we get to the last part of this video. To help illustrate the point, I ambushed a student currently enrolled in the Casino Level 1 course, live and in person in Durham, North Carolina, to help me make this overhead view. Disclaimer, if you think that she looks pretty good for only being a few weeks into casino, she has had a lot of dance experience, so depending on where you're at when you take the course, your mileage may vary. Whether you take the course in person or on the website, these are all the turns that I cover. Single arm turns simplify the lead follow connection and also give the follow an opportunity to practice styling. I usually start off with guapea, move on to siete because it's easy, and then we're already set up to learn vacila. Each turn not only has its unique footwork, but also styling options and nuances in the lead and follow technique that helps the turn function. All of these are explained in the course with a video for each turn shown with a partner. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Wrap her up on 1, 2, 3. Turn around on 5, 6, 7. All right? So when she's turning over her right shoulder on 1, 2, 3, this is a fun fact section. 1, 2, 3. That footwork, the follow's gonna use for a turn called vacila. When she turns out on 5, 6, 7, towards her left shoulder, 5, 6, 7, that's gonna be used for turns called Coca-Colas, as well as individual leads and follows footwork for solo practice. I turn towards my right shoulder on 1, 2, 3. I'm totally free with my left hand, and I turn out towards my left shoulder on 5, 6, 7. Something general I can say about the lead follow connection in casino is that it's constant. There's never a break.
It's a dance of the people, man. You know what I'm saying? It's a dance that was not created in a dance studio. So for me, you know, it should all be able to flow from the basic stuff. There shouldn't be a need for a prep or a need for an open break. It's like a yin-yang type of thing where you exchange places all the time.
Right.
You know?
So one drill that I have the students do is the lead will take his hand, follow gives her hand, and I tell them to think about it like links in a chain that you want no space and no slack. It has to be taut the entire time, and it's up to the lead to move the follow around and just feel a constant tension. So wherever the follow is relative to the lead, he may only have her on his right arm, he may only have her on his left hand, they may be in a closed position, but no matter what points of contact he has, there has to be constant tension and constant connection, which is helpful when we get to the last part, combining these turns to make simple turn patterns for social dancing. If a lead has a solid understanding of where certain turns take place and where they don't, he can start kind of putting them together like puzzle pieces. And not that she should anticipate, but if the follow knows what turns are likely to happen given her position relative to the lead, she has an idea of the things that she can expect or not, and it might help her be a little less anxious about following. So someone came to us wanting to learn. We were able to talk a little bit about casino and what it is. We were able to explain the rhythm sufficiently enough that people can start to feel the pulse. We introduced early some body mechanics that we're gonna practice often so people get as much time as possible moving naturally. We kept that body movement going when we started warming up with some steps that are gonna have a lot of utility when we start learning fundamental turns with an emphasis on lead follow connection and position so that we can combine them to make simple turn sequences for social dancing that are gonna look great because we never forgot about the body movement and we presented some styling options for leads and follows. So that's how I teach casino. It is covered in excruciating detail in the course on the website. It's designed to take somebody with zero experience and provide them everything they need to learn how to dance casino proficiently at their own pace from the comfort of their own home. But there's so much detail in the course, even if you already have casino experience, but think you might be able to like the look of your dancing a little bit more, there's probably something in there for you.
And to take it back to the beginning of the video, I know there's a lot of people who watch the channel who are considering getting going teaching or just started their own group class. And I hope this video was able to give an overview and a framework that you can use about how I teach. But the course itself really provides a full curriculum that you can use if you're just getting your start. And if you are on the fence about teaching, I'd like to leave you with some words of encouragement from my teacher, Carlos Ramirez, which the conversation that we had is part of the course if you buy it. Since nobody waits for Black Friday, by the way, it's on special as of today with promo code Friday. We'll take it back down to the promotional price of $49. But his thoughts about teaching too early.
I think most people start teaching what a lot of people would say too early.
At the end of the day, like you said, it's most people start teaching before they're ready. But what is really ready? I feel like if you've been dancing for a certain amount of time and you're fairly proficient at it, and you have a will to get better, and you kind of know what you're doing, you know, teaching is a good way to actually reinforce what you already know.
Yeah.
Or also like just improve overall, and you probably do have some value to that. You know, so I don't subscribe to that thought of like, oh, it's too early. I mean, if you've been dancing for like 2 months and you don't know what you're doing, you can't really social dance, then maybe that's a point. But I always feel like it's instructors that fear competition or whatever, or don't have 100% faith in their methodology or their that are always kind of doing those things. So yeah, I started teaching after 3 years of dancing. So whatever, here I am.